Like fire, hellfire.
Racing Hearts. Now, many people can disagree with me about this episode, but I just don't feel engaged with this episode. I just didn't like so much of this episode very much. It just drags on with Sam and Luna trying to figure out what they all have in common, when pretty it's so much obvious that they both have interest in music. Does that not hit anybody to actually know what they have in common? There are sometimes it can feel cringeworthy to some people out there in some points with this episode. The only laugh I got out of this was the ending. Like, somehow I did not see this one coming of Lynn being in disguise. That was the only one I had a time with a laugh out of it. And so much the gag with Lori and Lenny, I did not like how that gag actually turned out, especially when she had to put Lenny on a leash. Okay, but what's so funny about it? I think it's safe for me to say that I could just watch Perfect Gig over this.
Like fire, hellfire.
Be still in my heart. Okay, so this is not too bad of an episode compared to the top 3 I'm about to show you in this video. But there was so much annoyances and a bit of a derailment on the characters, especially on Lincoln. Because basically he tried to be cool and he tried to look like he's in the 50s, but in the end, he actually learned a lesson about being himself. But in this one, he tries to do the same shit again like he did in White Hair to try and impress a girl. Which is actually Stella, which we get the first physical appearance of her. It's likely we didn't see her face in White Hair. Although I can argue about how her height was in that episode compared to this one, but you know what? I love how the way she looks in this episode. Every guy in the Freckle Gang goo was trying to make Stella their girlfriend. It turns out in the very end that Stella wasn't actually looking for a boyfriend. Yet. But this episode could have been something about having Lincoln making Stella fit into the actual school. Like, this is what the whole episode could have been, and then that shipping would have actually sparked completely. And then somehow it would pick up somewhere in Tales of Woe. Then again, that episode could have actually had Lincoln and Stella actually trying to find Stella's music box. So I feel like this was a waste of opportunity and a waste of an episode compared to how the ending was in White Hair. If I wanted a better Stella episode, I would actually watch a Stella performance. It's just throughout this episode was totally obnoxious with the boys trying to get Stella to be their girlfriend.
Like fire, hellfire.
Ruthless people. All I can say is just skip this episode. As I stated before, the execution of this episode was terrible. Because I felt like Team Lynn didn't learn shit throughout this episode, and yet they constantly kept trading places with Team Rita, and they still get put out of their misery. While Team Rita actually gets a good life. And I basically didn't like Lana's character in this episode because of the termite situation. I don't even know why she so sympathized with them, when literally she actually eats bugs. She was literally eating an earthworm and patching things up. And yet again, with Rita her rights. I don't know what more can I say about this episode. Just go watch my review on Ruthless, people, and you'll know what I'm talking about.
Like fire, hellfire.
Cheers for fears. This was absolutely annoying. Especially when I hated how Lincoln and Clyde were in this fucking episode. They try to prove to channel that they can be brave enough that they're not scared of anything, and it turns out these two chicken shiznits are afraid of shit. And throughout the episode, they're totally scared shitless and didn't learn anything. The only thing I enjoyed was the sisters were trying to scare Lincoln and Clyde, to prove that they're brave, and it proves out that they're not. And I especially like how Lily was a little wolf pup.
Lily, wrong time to break out your new wolf jammies.
All I can say is, if you're brave enough to sit through a horror movie and not get jump scared at all, I would so likely have you on my team. But if you're a pussy, this is the episode for you. And I'm pretty sure these two screaming banshees will keep you company.
Like fire, hellfire.
Fool me twice. Good Lord Almighty, I despise so much of this episode as I did with April Fool's Rules. And especially with Silence of the Luanns. And I pretty much enjoy Fool's Paradise. Somehow, this was supposed to put an end to the April Fool's trilogy, but fuck that shit. In this episode, once again, the family is trying to avoid getting pranked by Luann, except this time, they find a bunch of stunt doubles that kind of look like them to replace them inside the house, so that way they get April Fool's pranked instead of them. But the bad news for them Luann traps her real family inside the garage as the fake family that pretends to be them actually humiliates them in public. I mean, how the fuck was she able to watch all this stuff, and where the hell did she even set the cameras up in public areas? Did she just get fucking access to the security of the entire city? And even the ending doesn't even make it up for it either when Luann returns home and said that she never pranked anybody again, and the family was pretending that they were moving away. What more can I say about this episode? You could just easily fucking skip this one. This did not feel like an April Fool's episode at all, like it was in the past April Fool's episodes. And yet she didn't even prank them, she publicly humiliated her family with the doppelgang lookalikes of them. If there's anything I only got one little laugh out of, it's when Lisa faints. That in itself alone is enough for me to roll on the fucking floor and just bust my guts out laughing. As for everything else, fuck this shit.
Like fire, hellfire.
Sitting Bull. Now this was an episode that we could sympathize with Lynn's character, even though she tries to do the babysitting job and she failed at it the first time. And in the very end, she babysits the Fox Twin triplets because these are the type of kids that are actually meant for her. Fuck no, that's not what I felt with this episode. Most people would say that this is the worst episode of season 3, but in my case, I say it's the worst Lynn Loud episode. Because in the very beginning of the episode, she tries to get into the babysitting job because she's the next one in line, and she tries to babysit the Macaulay kids, and it turns out she terrorized the shit out of them. And basically, I don't know why Lori, Luna, Lenny, and Luann are in babysitting business when later on, they aren't even in the babysitting service anymore. And it gets so much worse in the episode too, when Lynn actually cost them their jobs and ended up getting them all fired. You dumb, egotistical, jock-headed bitch. If she did that to me and cost me my job that I love working so much on, I would bury her, dig her up, and make sure she's dead. Okay, maybe I won't do that since that's a bit too dark, but I have something else in mind, but I won't say what it is. But honestly, how would you feel if one of your kids or your siblings cost you your job? But even though if she finally got into the babysitting jobs with the Fox kids, it still doesn't excuse her and it doesn't save this episode as well too. Even she get her elder sister's clients back. And plus, did you ever notice in Coop's dreams when Lynn and her jock friends were actually in Vanzilla and the Foxman triplets were actually there and she didn't even manage to tame them like she already did before? What's that go to tell you? I think likely it's safe to say that Lynn should stay out of the babysitting service for a long time. And number one goes to Frenzy. I fucking hate this episode so much badly. Okay, at the very first when I reviewed this episode, I thought it was good because seeing all the minor characters and some of my favorite characters were actually there. But when watching it again though, I actually realized something was really sour with this episode, where every character, and I mean every character, not including Lily, is so fucking unlikable. They try to have so many friends over so they can get what they fucking want, and anytime when Lincoln actually gets snarked at, they always put on this fucking grin which kind of irritates and annoys me so much. I just hated every single character with this episode, and I mean these characters in the Loud House, not including the minor characters. You'd think that any of the minor characters would actually use common sense to make Lincoln or one of his sisters to actually use common sense of what they're doing is wrong. But no, instead they have to fight over so they can get some of the privileges that they deserve because they're doing stupid shit and acting like a bunch of spoiled brats. Until in the very end, the cops show up and all the kids have to pay for the parking tickets, and the parents aren't even very much helpful here either. There were so many kids there at their house, they decided to go hide at the fucking mall. I mean, geez, do you guys not even want to solve every kind of problem like you do with Brawl in the Family? Or, Chore and Peace? What the fuck is the matter with these parents? And in the very end, they bring a few more friends over. What the fuck are we actually learning from this episode? Oh my gosh, that took so much shit out of me. I don't know why everybody was behaving this way in an episode like this. Saving Royal Woods did so much better than this. I would have just loved to see this episode interact with some of the characters like with Dana and Darcy, or maybe Haiku with one of Lola's friends. It would have been so much great, especially if we would have seen Carol Pingrain this episode. But whatever it is, I could give less than a fuck about this episode. Or at least all the episodes here from Season 3. And that concludes all my hate for Season 3 Loud House episodes.
Be mine or you.